or something. So we know the diagnosis, we know the management. We have to start steroid. Fine. Now look at this 57-year diabetic day 7. Now it has crossed that window to day 5 to day 7. Fever and HbA1c is out of control. Saturation is 97. So saturation is 97. It means I have got time to evaluate for home care or admit him, evaluate and give steroids if required. Fine. And this patient, 72-year, again diabetic, but fifth day onward, no fever. Now, this gives me an idea. Okay, I can leave this from my follow-up chart. I will just convey him. Don't worry. You just follow. If you drop in saturation or fever reoccur, then you talk to me. Now, this type of patient, I don't know in Ahmedabad, 21 to 45-year-old. Yesterday I was calculating. I counseled in past 2 weeks around 200, 250 families. Fine, in 2 weeks, and it was around one. And some of most of the time they were doctors. It was around 2,000 patients. Means one family had almost 6 patients. One third of this age group, 21 to 45, had hypoxemia. This is happening in Delhi. 43-year-old fever for 7 days. So fever for 7 days. It means this patient is not going to give time because here fever is 101. So you give steroid. Don't waste another 24 hours. One dose of steroid, low dose steroid, because patient is not hypoxic. We'll talk about when to give steroid in non-hypoxic patient. Give one dose of Medrol like 16 milligram, then evaluate. 91-year-old, she doesn't want to go to hospital. What else you can do? I mean, there are almost 100 patients I am treating in house management, all desaturating to 92, 93, 91, 94. Otherwise, you would have admitted. So hypoxic patient never go for home treatment unless you are pushed. And this 35-year-old, nowadays, this is a new phenomenon. They are hypoxic on day 3. And if the fever is persistent, 100, 200, 3, then that is a worrisome thing. What precautions we used to have when we talk about home care? Return management. Return management is very important. I give them chart. I'll show you the chart. Monitoring, monitoring, monitoring. We all know that pulse oximeter should be there, some smart caregiver should be there, and home collection investigation facility, isolation facility, controllable anxiety should be there, and oxygen cylinder and steroid dose. Steroid dose is very important. And always don't treat patient with diabetes and obesity for an home care where the fever is persisting more than 5 days, because once you give steroid, sugar will jump. This is a chart which I give: name, age, sex, hypertension, diabetes. Suppose this patient contacts me on day 1. I consider, okay, this is low, okay, this is not in high risk, otherwise high risk symptoms are not there, I don't treat it, but I give this chart. Now this patient want to contact me after 4 days, 5 days. And he again tells me the story. Doctor साहब 5 दिन पहले बुखार था, 4 दिन. It's very difficult. You're counseling 50 patients, 60 patients. You give them chart. If he tells me I am having fever on day 2 and these are the CRP, it doesn't carry any meaning, because in day 2 fever can happen. But if I find on the chart is day 2 fever is happening, baseline oxygen saturation was 99, now it is 96. CRP somebody did at the baseline was 2, now 10, or not 10 is too low, but 15 or 20. If the combination of factor, especially with the day, comes here, then it is very important. Then it gives me better idea. Means then I'm better learned about that. No, very important is the basic understanding of disease. So I am going to focus on the basic understanding of disease that will make our job much easier. Okay, so now this is the most important chart other than the symptomatology. This is day zero. Patient, a human has acquired infection. Now, from a normal human being, this human can become symptomatic infectious patient or can have asymptomatic course. Okay. Now, what happens around 3 days after I've been exposed, and the incubation period we know is around 5 days. We assume that I am going to have 5 days of incubation period. After 3 days of contact, very high chances that I can become contagion. Either at this stage I am pre-symptomatic if I am going to develop symptoms on day one, or I can be asymptomatic. So this is an incubation period. On day one, when the symptom starts, that is, we call it day zero, that is the most important thing. My viremia phase starts 2.5 days before that day one. So whosoever has been exposed to me before when I develop symptom, that is very important. Fine. So 3 days after contacting, after exposure, and 2 days before the symptomatology. That's why you get a test on the day one. Day one is the peak of viral infection in the throat. So next 3 days, so day one to day three is the most important time when you get an RT-PCR done. So viral will replicate in 90% of the patient. Your innate immunity will lead to normalization. Now we move forward. In 10% of the normal human being, what will happen around 4th to 7th day, previously 7th to 9th day, now around 4th to 7th day, there will be dysregulated inflammation, also leading to inflammatory coagulopathy. Virus may be dying here, but virus debris can lead to problem and patient can develop pneumonia. Fine. Either he can land up in chronic lung disease or post-COVID state or recovers fully. And at times when patient doesn't, patient is absolutely normal, just an acquired infection, no symptomatology, can have
India.
hyperinflammatory syndrome that is
Hmm?
very common in pediatric age group.
हमारे यहाँ सैटरडे
Now, very important is that common symptoms, we all know that all sort of symptomatology is present, but if somebody develops runny nose with loss of taste and smell, that indicates milder disease in 90% of the patient. Means I've seen only one patient not following this rule. Otherwise, till date, it gives you like a green card for USA, something like that. Now comes a confusion when we talk about diagnosis and investigation. So virus isolation, we know that RT-PCR is, has to be done. Inflammation and pneumonia. Always remember, we need to chase patient by four means. One is symptomatology, when the fever is happening. Second is your inflammation in the sense that patient clinically having fever. Second is a hypoxemia. Third is your inflammation, that is inflammatory marker, that includes CRP, ferritin, and prothrombotic state is. Sorry, my throat is bad. Now, fourth is prothrombotic state, and fifth is radiology. So you have to chase patient in these 5 ways. Okay, and each and every patient you have to take these five, you can say, parameter to chase them, whether they are improving, whether they are going down. Now, when we talk about RT-PCR, everybody knows that it takes around 1 day, 8 hours, depending on the load. But these type of, RT-PCR confuses you. You're like portable cartridge-based system. What a different type? Gene Expert, Quastat, BioFire, TrueNet. Always remember, There was a question somebody asked, if somebody got vaccinated, can they become positive? No. When we get vaccinated, even if say suppose a vaccination come and you put in the nose and then you get a test, so these RT-PCR actually detects not just one S1 but other genes. Secondly, that's why even not only vaccinated cannot show you false positivity, mutant state cannot show false negativity. Because look at, it detects E, N2, E, ORF, ORF1, ORF8. These are not, at times these are non-structural proteins and other genes. We don't get mutated. Even if one get mutated, other will be there. So you may have a inconclusive RT-PCR result, but it won't be negative. Just one point about TrueNet. It detects beta coronavirus. It doesn't detect that it is SARS-CoV-2. So if you get a TrueNet, you have to confirm it with confirmatory test. Now CT value everybody knows that doesn't carry any meaning, doesn't describe the severity of case. It is just tells you that it is infectivity, and experience says a patient who is asymptomatic can have CT value of 13. The patient who is symptomatic can have a CT value of 29. What is CT value? It is a cycle threshold value. What happens in RT-PCR? This is repeated replication. You amplify and try to look at the fluorescent signal on the test. More the cycle you need, it means there was less sample. If it get amplified within 10 cycles, it means there was a huge amount of sample, a huge amount of gene that was present. Now, regarding this inflammatory marker, just 3 points I want to say. All inflammatory marker has to be chased. Not a single inflammatory marker at a given time carries importance. Like NLR ratio, a lymphocyte less than 10. Suppose somebody sends you CBC report on the day one, and on day one, and you find lymphocyte ratio, lymphocyte is less than 10%. Keep close watch. This patient is likely to deteriorate. Means yesterday there were 25 patients on home counseling. All patients who were admitted, who were very sick, none of them had lymphocyte more than 10%. So this is a good marker, but not alone. This is very important. CRP is very important parameter, and especially on day 3 or day 5 when the patient has peak of symptoms. Fine. This is very important marker. Again, yesterday I had 6 patients who had high CRP. So there were 2 groups. Symptoms has to be persist, only then CRP carries value. One patient was asymptomatic with CRP of 30 on day 6. So I told him nothing has to be done. Then out of 5 patients, 3 had CRP more than 70 and with symptomatology on day 7. Oxygen saturation still 94, 90, still 95, 96. This was day before, sorry, not yesterday. I convinced them that these are the patients who should be admitted in ICU, or not in ICU, with the ICU backup. And all of them where the CRP was more than 70 or more than 90 with little bit hypoxemia developing, all other features of, you can say, severe COVID. This indicates cytokine storm. And none of them escaped oxygen requirement and developed very aggressive disease. So if you find, for an example, a high risk group with high risk symptomatology with CRP more than 70, 90, if you got interleukin 6 again more than 60, 50, these are the patients who require not simple nursing home but a tertiary level setup, because these patients will require BiPAP and high flow devices. Always remember this. Day one CRP doesn't carry value, and this I have already told you. Now comes a very confusing parameter, that is D-dimer. D-dimer is a, just alone D-dimer should not be chased, because at times lipemia, high triglyceride level, elevated bilirubin level, or many patients have rheumatoid factor or some hemolysis. There can be falsely high D-dimer. Okay. Now this has to be taken, but if you find symptomatology is persisting and your initial D-dimer is more than 2 or 2000, that indicates very patient is going to land up. Interleukin 6 and D-dimer, there are two important points. The sample has to be collected and transported on the ice if it is taking more than 3 hours. That is very important. Now I'll give you an actual example. This is a 56-year-old male. Focus here. Day 14, day 15. A fever low grade is persisting despite day 1, day 6 remdesivir. Okay, everything was given and patient was on low dose steroid. Now on day 14, look at jump in the CRP and jump in the IL-6. But he developed actual hypoxemia on day 15 evening. Day 15, there was a rise in CRP. So it is a trend that is important. Pneumonia doesn't develop within 6 hours. Pneumonia gives you some idea about when it is going to develop. Now, chest imaging, the most important slide is this one, other than that high risk feature. What is the indication of chest imaging? A patient who has developed hypoxemia, saturation say less than 95, doesn't require chest imaging. What we are going to prove? Nothing. We are going to give start steroid. A patient who is having high risk feature symptomatology, like fever persisting after day 6, day 7, inflammatory markers slightly plus minus, but we have to take the decision of starting steroids. These are the patients where HRCT helps. Or if you're thinking of some other differential diagnosis, or patient has lost, first 3 days he didn't got RT-PCR and now he's on day 7, day 8, where RT-PCR is likely to be negative and you are suspecting clinically. So these are the indications of HRCT. It has to be contrast, no contrast, and means no need of expiratory film. And what we expect in asymptomatic, in 46% it can be normal. Symptomatically, the best time is around day 4 to day 5, because then false negative chances are less. And ground glass opacity are the opacity where you can see the blood vessels beneath the ground glassing. And once you find a crazy pavement, it means disease has progressed. Crazy pavement is just a septal thickening superimposed over ground glassing, and consolidation where you are not able to view the blood vessels beneath the whiteness. So it means it has consolidated. So these are the progressive stages, and to start with 0 to 5 days, then 5 to 8 days, but patient can directly develop consolidation and at times fibrosis on day 7 itself. Now, this is very important. In a given CT scan, when you will least think of COVID, that is pericardial effusion and cavitating lung disease. So you won't think of COVID, you will think of something else. Now, these are the, how to give scoring. I won't go into detail, but more important is how to interpret the scoring. So what happens, you'll find either numbers are given from 25 or from the 40. Mostly we use type of lobe, how much the lobes are involved, and you give from 25. You give scoring mild less than 7, moderate 8 to 17, and severe more than 18. Now, my important point is, if patient sends me a CT scan, डॉक्टर साहब बताना जरा सीटी में कितना सीवियर है ये, you need to know symptomatology. If patient is asymptomatic, absolutely asymptomatic on day 7, day 8, which usually doesn't happen, then there is no meaning of CT scan. Usually asymptomatic patients will have CT score of 2 to 4, 2 to 5. Fine. So up to 5, 6 in asymptomatic, it's fine. Most of time, patients with symptomatology without hypoxemia will have CT scan score of 11 to 13. So what happens? What I want to convey? Can I just based on CT score can predict the clinical outcome, clinical course? Can I prescribe the treatment? If you consider hypoxemia as an alone criteria to start steroid, then you will find that even patient with moderate score of 8 to 17 doesn't desaturate in 50% of the patient. Few studies says. So hypoxemia alone should not be considered, but look at the high risk situation. How the high risk situation is there. So if patient having persistent fever, it means this patient is likely to develop pneumonia. Regarding therapeutic classes, what are the different class? We know that there is antiviral, immunomodulator, and antibodies. Even if you prescribe vitamin C, vitamin D, ivermectin, azithromycin, doxy, I don't prescribe. Even I don't prescribe favipiravir at all. Last year I used to prescribe. They are not at all efficient drugs. Even if you prescribe, it's okay. But convey them, these are not going to work. Main thing is monitoring, and high risk symptomatology is very important. So drugs which we are going to discuss are antiviral. I go 10 minutes. Okay.
Dhiren, you can,
Antiviral.
sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
You can go ahead for 15 minutes more. We started a little late, but still, I mean, we would like to listen to your full talk.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
stop halfway. Just finish it in 15-20 minutes. That should be okay. And still,
Okay.
if
Yeah,
there are
sir.
people, we'll have some discussion also. Please.
Yeah. So antivirals, convalescent plasma, remdesivir, antibodies, immunomodulators, and now new drug has been given to us. I don't have any experience, and the literature which you have, I have the same literature. That is an antiviral alpha. That is interferon. So I don't have experience whether it should be used, but probably it should be used within 7 days, and when the patient is having moderate disease, oxygen requirement. So that is a new thing which has come yesterday, and anticoagulant. I'll be telling you, this will give you a glimpse when drugs should be used. See, my aim is recognize 2A stage. These are the stages from infection. 2A and 2B, these are the two stages of pneumonias. In 2A, patient doesn't desaturate. Here, the 2B, the patient started desaturating. So very important is 2A state to recognize the 2A. But many patients will come. If you remember last year in Gujarat, patients on day 1 who were very tense, he used to get an remdesivir. He, they do viral antiviral, day 1 day. I also gave to some patient, but despite of giving remdesivir, some of the patient land up in cytokine storm. So it is not a very good or Ramban drug. In first 7 days, when viremia phase is there, sorry, antibodies, if available, like very soon we will have monoclonal antibodies, cocktail of antibodies, which Trump got. Suppose some obese diabetic patient comes on day 3, high grade fever persisting. In these patients, you give antibodies, they have got fantastic results. Now, regarding convalescent plasma, there is no role after day 7 to day 9 when patient has actually deteriorated, has developed severe pneumonia. Okay, because it carries antibodies. From where you are going to take convalescent plasma? If you take plasma from a patient who has just recently recovered, that is not allowed. You have to have around 4-week window. So in the present epidemic, if you use the old plasma, old means some patient was infected last year, and you take plasma, then now we have got mutant state, again doesn't carry any meaning. People are thinking that probably these antibodies are also not going to work. The amount of antibodies in these plasma is so high that it can still work on mutant strain. So what I want to say that convalescent plasma doesn't work after some stage, and in the present pandemic the India is passing through, convalescent plasma doesn't carry any meaning. There is no indication of convalescent plasma in the present pandemic. It's a wasteful resources. It has got a lot of side effects. Now, when we approach say day 5, day 6, and we are landing here, patient is not desaturating. But if you find lot of chest infiltrate, then role of anticoagulants come. These are the primary medications which prevents and you can treat. If fever is persisting, then role of steroids come. Somehow at same stage, imagine a patient whose saturation is now 94, 93, lot of chest infiltrates are there. There the comes of role of remdesivir. Exact role of remdesivir comes here. Okay, so best patient, minimal oxygen requirement, and lot of infiltrate on CT chest. These are the indications. Remember this. Believe me, past 1 month, I didn't have remdesivir in OPD, in my phone counseling. There are 1/3 of patients who are requiring oxygen, who have got CT score of 15, 14. They are not getting bed. Steroid and enoxaparin is working very well. Last year we had lot of remdesivir. So what I can say, it makes a difference, this drug, remdesivir, but doesn't make that much difference that we cannot manage without remdesivir. Why we are talking about remdesivir means it doesn't work because it is not that efficient medication. We have seen in 1/3 of the patient where remdesivir was given on day 1, day 2. Despite of giving remdesivir, these patients land up in cytokine storm. Of course, avoid in pregnancy unless patient is very sick. GFR, creatinine more than 3, or the SGOT, SGPT more than 5 days, and the best use is within 10 days. Now comes the corticosteroid. I'll tell you something. This is a bookish way. A patient who has developed hypoxemia, you are bound to start corticosteroid. But I am talking about patient who has not developed hypoxemia. Day 6, day 7, patient fever is persisting. If just for inflammation you want to give low dose like 16 milligram or 8 milligram methylprednisolone. Okay. So these patients should be evaluated. Suppose the day 6 patient comes with the fever. So day 7 patient is continue to have fever. And you find CT score of something like 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Patient still not hypoxic. You get an CRP. CRP is borderline. In these patients, you start with low dose steroid because you know that 5 to 7 days. So I usually normally wait for 7 to 8 days. One thing always remember, no use of steroid within 3 days of ailment unless patient is hypoxic. First 3 to 5 days is a viremia phase. If you give steroid, I've seen many patients have got prolonged protected disease, and that is a problem. Look at this 43-year-old, which I discussed. CT score was 11, TLC was low. I started steroid Medrol 40 to 32 once a day with enoxaparin. And now it's almost day 8. Now patient is much settled, much better. Now anticoagulant, whenever you are going to start steroid, you have to give anticoagulant. Whether it should be oral or subcutaneous, best is the subcutaneous because it has got anti-S1 antibodies. Otherwise, you can give tablets like Equalis and Eliquis and that is Epoxaven, and oral you can give 2.5 twice a day. But always remember, whenever there are a lot of chest infiltrates, especially with oxygen requirement, you have to give prophylactic. But if oxygen requirement increases like more than 10 liters, then you anticoagulate by not only double dose of anticoagulant. That is, you give enoxaparin 40 BD, otherwise enoxaparin 40 OD. And many patients, they are not able to get an injectable, and you can give oral epibexin, and there are a lot of anticoagulants. I told you, convalescent plasma is a waste of resources to be prescribed in severe disease. Once we have got monoclonal antibodies, they have a role to be prescribed within 7 days. Now comes the tocilizumab and sarilizumab and all that. What happened? The typical patient for tocilizumab, day 7, day 8, patient very quickly going down, severely hypoxic. You find CRP 130, IL-6 more than 600, 1000, 2000, 3000. You start methylprednisolone like 40 milligram twice a day in these patients. At times in these patients, I give one dose of 80 or 125 milligram of methylprednisolone with on day 1 itself. Next 36 hours, most of the patients will settle despite of everything. If patient still not settling, then comes role of these monoclonal antibodies. Actually, they inhibit 1 or 2 cytokines, but we have got lot of cytokines which requires steroid. So that's why tocilizumab and all these doesn't work well. They have got major side effects. What happens? Like tocilizumab inhibits the cytokines which are required for lung remodeling also. So it has been seen that it leads to immunoparalysis, lot of nosocomial infections they develop. Not only nosocomial infection, they develop lung fibrosis because the cytokine they inhibit are actually required for lot of other issues also. Lot of remodeling happens because of those cytokines. Now we come to the children. I think within a day or two, we'll have guidelines on children. I'm going to give you a practical glimpse. 90% of the patient, we know that this is a mild, moderate, severe classification. Any respiratory involvement, we have included even severe GI involvement as a moderate case. Okay, patient having fever of 105, 106 will come into the moderate patient as a moderate case. What is the problem with the practitioner is a mild one, either asymptomatic, continuous fever for 100, 300 for When to think that there is something locha inside the patient, when something is happening. That is the most important point. Many of the patients actually develop MISC during acute COVID. Normally it happens after 4 to 6 weeks, but during COVID, these patients. So what I do, all general marker which we pediatricians are used to, not oral able to take anything and persistently purging. Saturation, I don't check less than 8 years because it's very difficult. They panic because finger is small and you put in a pulse oxy. Good pulse oximeters for pediatric use are still not available. A fever which is high grade more than 100 to 103 persisting after day 5, especially if there is appearance of rash. And in adolescent, we are looking at the same what is happening in the Gujarat. These patients are developing pneumonia like an adult. So in adolescent, I'm keeping close watch on oxygenation as it happened in the adult I showed you. Otherwise, I just look for the high grade fever 104, 105 on day 5 onward, and especially if there is appearance of rash, I get a CRP and CBC. That gives you an idea. Okay, MISC is happening in this child. Steroid, it is almost same. Either you can use dexamethasone. I'm not talking about MISC. MISC with shock means you give bolus of steroid. Otherwise, you don't give bolus steroid. Means not give 10 milligram per kg, 20 milligram methylpred, but you give same doses, 0.15 milligram per kg per day for 10 days dexa, prednisolone 1 milligram per kg once a day for 10 days, methylprednisolone 0.8 milligram per kg for 10 days. So all these are doses of steroid in a patient who is requiring respiratory support but not MISC, not in shock, then you use. Now, this is another slide in a patient or pediatric patient. How you differentiate, is it just acute COVID or he is developing MISC? High grade fever more than 100 to 103 after 4 days with rashes or conjunctival congestion. Multi-organ involvement like myocardium, Kawasaki disease, toxic shock syndrome. In toxic shock syndrome, invariably you will find whole body become tender. This I have noticed. You ask the parent to touch the muscles. So every muscle patient will complain of severe pain. There is severe myositis in these patients. One marker you can start with CRP. If you find CRP is pretty high, 100, 200. Another factor I have found that procalcitonin in these patients is outer proportionately high, 15, 20. Then you think of MISC, admit these patients. So if I conclude the presentation, the most important step is risk stratification. Risk stratification. Which of the patients you will follow clinically? 80 to 90% patient doesn't require treatment. Monitoring is actually key to success. Laboratory and radiological parameter should be used, especially day 4, day 5 onward, should be used judiciously, and test should be interpreted in clinical context. So alone test doesn't carry any meaning. But don't neglect the test also if they are required. And suppose some patient has got high CRP and D dimer, and you are thinking that the patient is not intelligent enough to catch the low grade fever. Then in this type of patient, okay, let me get a CT scan. CT scan is very good parameter, not to treat, but not to not treat. Like yesterday, I was treating a neurosurgeon of my hospital. Day 5, day 6 patient was having low grade fever. Fine. So I gave him one dose of steroid and I told him that, okay, get an investigation. And he got to CBC, CRP, everything was normal. And he became afebrile, but now he got in CT scan on day 7. CT scan was normal. So what I did on day 5 evening, when I started steroid, Medrol of 16 milligram, within 3 days I tapered and discontinued. So how the CT scan helped? On day 7, it is a absolutely normal CT scan, just a CVAT score of 2. That helped me to take the decision not to treat, not to give steroid. Say 5, not for 5 to 7 days. I need to give steroid. I discontinued steroid within 3 days, and asked him if fever comes back, just inform me. That is the beauty of CT scan. If you get a CT scan on day 1, day 2, day 3, it is a waste. In hypoxemia, if you get a CT scan, it is a waste because you know that you have to give steroid. You are wasting time of not your time but also patient time. Every 6 hours is important. Recognition of early pulmonary stage. I hope that Government of India has described moderate disease when saturation become less than 94. That is wrong. Why patients in queue for oxygen? If you wait for a desaturation to happen to 92, we adult patient desaturate within 6 hours to 88, 80. We need to find out if fever is persisting more than 5 to 7 days. They are equally important. And remdesivir, again, is not a Ramban at all. I can see the difference without remdesivir this season, with lot of remdesivir last season. No difference. Little bit difference it can make. Thank you very much, and I'm really sorry. I'm so tired, so tired.
I know,
Yesterday
Dr.
evening.
Dhiren, thank you so much for joining because I understand you are too overworked. And I think you represent the healthcare workers and professionals who are working day and night. So thank you so much for joining us. I can see from your face how tired you are, but still you joined us. Thank you very much. Now we'll discuss for a few minutes. I have some few rapid fire questions like any role of ecosprin routinely in adults?
No, sir. No.
Atorvastatin?
No, sir. No.
Okay.
See, sir, you find that there are lot of each and every medication has been tried in this epidemic. So
No, people use it for prevention of myocardial infarction later on. I mean, is that?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, dose of steroid, it's a dynamic process, as I understood. I mean, you did give steroid for 3 days and then discontinued. Similarly, doses also is dynamic. I mean, you start with low dose, and as you enter cytokine storm, you need to ramp up the dose, right?
Exactly.
Okay. If you are giving steroid, is it necessary to give a prophylactic antibiotic?
No, I never give.
Okay. When do you see the, I know you are not an epidemiologist, but still you are a very keen observer and an intelligent medical professional. My question is, when do you see the peaking of this wave?
This virus, no prediction. This virus is beyond my thought process. This is beyond my thought. I predicted in January to my chairman that because we were dismantling all all COVID ward, so I told him that sir March में फिर आएगा ये. He said शुभ बोल. मैंने कहा सर आएगा March 15th के बाद आएगा ये. But I told him sir mild आएगा, don't worry. But I never thought that it is going to come with this intensity.
Right. So, friends, I have heard Dr. Dhiren Gupta very often. We interact a lot. He helps a lot of medical doctors in managing their families, as Dr. Lalit is doing in Baroda. Though he's a pediatrician, he is involved in adult intensive care, and you have seen the vast experience that is reflected in his talk. So now house is open for few comments and questions for next 5 minutes or so, because we need to relieve him, because I think he'll be getting ready to go back to.
नहीं सर है अभी I got 10 minutes.
Okay, great.
But वो around phone calls almost जब से मैं उठाऊं तो 30 phone calls आ गई हैं साइड में मैं देख रहा था.
If we start with low molecular weight heparin, patient is admitted in the ward. When the patient is discharged, should we continue with Novax?
Yes. Sir.
And which one in how much dose?
Sir, I use Aculis for 2.5 milligram twice a day for 2 to 4 weeks.
2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, and steroids, how long you have to give in an otherwise patient who was...
Sir, in a hypoxic, like suppose patient saturation was 92, I started steroid. Cytox CRP was high. So total 10 days full dose, then 30% tapering every week for say another 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
For starting the steroids, there is no need of covering with remdesivir?
Not at
In
all, sir.
second week, in
If
second week's example, on 7th day, patient comes with a persistent fever,
yeah,
and you decide to put him on steroids
yeah,
with some inflammatory markers. So,
yes,
would
yeah.
you like to give remdesivir along with steroids and
No, sir, no.
LMWH? Not required.
Low molecular weight definitely, but not remdesivir.
Not required on 7th day also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when do you give remdesivir then? Say, because this is still in the window of 10 days
Sir, if
of viremia.
remdesivir is available,
Yes, sir.
if remdesivir is available, okay. I thought that you are asking that remdesivir is essential or not.
No. If it is available, yeah.
If it is available, then a patient who has got lot of chest infiltrate, fine, having persistent fever,
Right.
and say day 5, day 6, day 7.
Right.
So steroid, enoxaparin, and remdesivir is available.
If
Then
available.
you start it.
Right.
But
If it is
I
not
thought that
available,
you are asking that remdesivir is essential before starting steroid. That I answered.
okay, sir. Right. Thank you.
Role and dose of the anticoagulants in pediatrics?
No, sir. But as I told you, we are getting now patients who are hypoxic, lung injury is there, and typically behaving like adult. We are starting low molecular heparin if your D dimers are high. And prophylactically also we are starting, but I don't have much experience. Just 4 patients came in last 2 weeks, typical adult type pathophysiology. So we started low molecular heparin, subcutaneous heparin, 1 milligram per kg per dose, maximum 60. We have started.
If the patient is beyond 7 days continuous fever, no hypoxia, can he be given steroids and low molecular weight heparin at home without admitting?
Yeah, sir. I told you, all patients are on steroid and low molecular heparin. All. Those who are, I mean to say, my father is also having COVID. Yesterday, I started steroid on day 8. I waited because he's having low grade fever, no hypoxemia. On day 8, I started steroid.
So Dhiren,
Almost all.
in such a situation like your father's situation, how long do you give steroids and how do you taper?
Sir, this requires just common sense, which I think Gujarat has maximum. So I'll start with I started 16 milligram Medrol once a day. I look at the clinical features. I'll get a marker. If marker continue to be normal, I'll get an HRCT today or tomorrow. But if everything looks fine, I may skip the HRCT. I'll give for 5 days and then taper. All depends on for what situation you started steroid. For this situation, it is not well described. It is just out of books.
Right.
You won't find any, a textbook saying that persistence of fever, you start steroid. But remember, first 5 days, don't start steroid.
That's fine. Now, the fear amongst many of our colleagues in giving steroid in low dose in such situation is that some patients die after few days or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or some of them deteriorate after 10 days or 12 days. And then it is said that it was because you gave low dose steroids. So that's why this question arises.
No. Sir, there are 2 things. It has to be appropriate dose. A patient who is having hypoxemia, patient having high CRP, you start full dose. A patient not hypoxic, but your CRP, as I told you, 60, interleukin 6 also 6. I give one bolus dose of 80. Somebody asked that can we give 500? No, in absence of MISC, don't give 500. You give one dose of 80 or 125. Change them next 10 days. I make a chart. I told them that अगर जिंदा रहना है तो चार्ट जरूर बनाना है. मैं इसके बिना नहीं मैनेज करूंगा. See, suppose Dr. Satish, you send me, Dhiren, 7th day हो गया, ये मेरा CRP है, क्या करूं, कब कर लूं क्या डोज? मेरे को मैं नहीं बता सकता. आप बताओगे डे 7 है, स्टीरॉयड मेरा इतना चल रहा था, रेमडेसिविर मैंने लिया नहीं है, एनॉक्सीपेरिन इतना चल रहा था, लास्ट सीआरपी मेरा 25 था, प्रेजेंट सीआरपी सपोज 35 हो गया या 45 हो गया, मैं स्टीरॉइड को टेपर नहीं करूंगा।
बराबर।
फीवर आ रहा है तो मैं स्टीरॉइड को इंक्रीज कर दूंगा और मैं कहूंगा आप 3 दिन बाद मेरे को रिपोर्ट करना। सो ये मैथ्स है। एंड टेक माय वर्ड, as compared to pediatric complicated things, this is a simplistic thing which we can take as a profession in a better way than the medical person.
Yes.
So all is maths, but each and every patient behave differently. And suppose किसी को simple inflammation है, more major chest infiltrate नहीं है, you have started steroid, no need to start anticoagulant, you can skip that.
Sorry, repeat that again. In situation where you don't give anticoagulant, please repeat.
Suppose it's a fever persisting, okay, and nothing else is there. No inflammatory marker are raised. You get a CT score is just 2, 3, 4. You give low dose steroid, and in these cases you can skip anticoagulant.
Okay, that's good. Because earlier you said no, whenever you start steroid, anticoagulants must. I think this is a good message that you give.
Sir, again, every doctor manages its own way in the gray zone.
Right.
So basically, anticoagulants to be given when there are lung shadows in CT.
There are lung shadows or hypoxemia, you should give anticoagulant. You know what happened? By virtue of experience, people become confident rather than evidence-based.
Dhiren, as a corollary to this, when we start steroid, is it necessary to have CT must to find out whether there are chest infiltrates in a patient who is not hypoxic?
In 80% of I do, but in 20%, when I find that okay, patient is absolutely fine, and it's a low risk category, then at times I skip, but normally I do because that helps in decreasing the treatment quickly.
Okay.
In rare cases, even after giving remdesivir, steroids, and anticoagulants, after 3 weeks, also the low-grade fever persists with extreme weakness. What can be done for that?
Very difficult question, sir. These are very difficult patients, and you just you just manipulate the steroids and wait and watch. There is nothing, no definitive answer to this. Last time we had lot of these type of patients, but fortunately this time either we are in early phase of pandemic. This time we didn't had these type of patients, but it was very difficult, and we just manipulated steroid and continuously look at the hypoxemia, and at times many of the injectable drugs leads to drug fever, and unnecessary use of drugs leads to drug fever. So, and many of the patients developed UTI on second week, end of the second week, get an TLC, treat them as any PO, not just COVID. And many of the patients do develop fungal infections. So fungal infection and superimposed infection should be ruled out.
People attribute the fungal infection to steroids. Is it true?
Yeah, steroid and decreased immunity. Like in, if you remember, in dengue also, we used to have flare up of your mucormycosis. Fine, everybody has seen that era. So probably decreased immunity also lead to flaring. It is not only the steroid.
Right. Dr. Samir wants to ask the oral anticoagulant for children. What are the oral anticoagulants?
We use Eliquis as 2.5, but it is not mentioned. It should not be used less than 12 years.
Okay.
But I don't remember even a single patient where I need to give oral anticoagulant in children.
Okay.
For oral anticoagulant, I've got more experience in adult rather than pediatric age group. In pediatric age group, if we require, we convey to our hematology fellows that, okay, you just prescribe him.
You prefer rivaroxaban or apixaban?
Either of it, sir. Whatever is available. Yeah.
Somebody had asked isolated rise in LDH, is it significant?
LDH indicates lung injury. In 100 of the one out of 100 patient, if you find LDH significantly rising more than say around 750 to 1000, that indicates lung injury is going to happen. And this usually indicates advanced disease. Not these type of OPD patients you will find high LDH.
The similar
One-
isolated rise of IL-6. Other things are normal. Ferritin normal, CRP normal. Only patient having fever.
Yeah,
On third day, IL-6 is very high.
yeah, very high means what the value?
That was probably a wrong test. It was about 160. So if
Yeah,
we
so
repeated
it
next
is-
day, it was 16.
Yeah, it was due to because IL-6 and D-dimer, if they are not stored properly, and this is very, very common situation,
Common.
what you are talking, very, very common, very, very common. And but in one of the patient, there was the other way problem. There was a rise in CRP and IL-6, so I thought, oh, the patient is not that symptomatic. And
Right.
within 3 days, he'll end up in cytokine storm.
Oh,
So I mean to say, chase this patient.
chase this patient, right.
Right.
So
Okay,
IL-6, which value of IL-6 should be alarming?
Sir, more than 10 times. Like normal is 6, then you
Six.
can say around
More than 60.
25 to 50 plus is alarming, and especially rise in IL-6 is important.
Okay. Okay. How often do you have to test once you find a high IL-6?
These are in hospital patients. So we
Okay.
check on alternate day or every
Alternate.
third day. But if you talk about OPD, in a high risk situation, I get things checked in every third day.
Third day. Okay.
So thank you so much, Dr. Dhiren. You more than made up for
Yeah.
your late
Sir,
entry, and we
sir,
had your YouTube video, so I could start the meeting. Thank you
सर
so
ये
much
कुछ
for
क्वेश्चन भी है, ये कुछ क्वेश्चन था यहाँ पूछा किसी ने.
किसी ने है, देखो मैं एक मिनट है कुछ चैट में देख लेता हूँ. That was preferred antibiotic in pediatric patient and its indication.
सर नॉर्मली क्या होता है, जैसे yesterday around 3 days back एक डॉक्टर नीज was admitted. Fine. She had fever for 7 days, antibodies 240 with low blood pressure. So Mossy was doctor, so she thought of PIMS, transferred to us. I found that okay, CRP was 260, CRP was 81, IL-6 was 150, and TLC was 2500. There was no skin rash, no eye suffusion and all that. And family had COVID 4 months back. So I gave 1 dose of steroid when the patient came. Patient BP was maintained. When I saw, I thought that it can be entering itself, because IL-6, if we take per se as a COVID, the values are 20, 25. But if you look at the pediatric population, single disease like dengue, single problem like enteric, you'll have IL-6 25, 30, 80.
Yes.
So this is a cytokine storm which very often happens in pediatric age group. This is nothing new to us, because past 1 year, almost all the patients with pyrexia were investigated for MISC. Even scarlet fever in one of the patient, IVIG was given, because that had typical rash over the body, and IL-6 and CRP are going to raise in an inflammation. So when we talk about adult, adolescent, and pediatric, these are 3 different classes. So IL-6 shakes me when I'm treating adult, when it is more than 50, 60, 70, rising quickly, especially more than 92 is very significant. But in pediatric population, don't chase these markers. Even don't treat D-dimer. You don't need anticoagulant even if D-dimer is 5 times. Last point, in pregnancy, third trimester, D-dimer can be up to 1700. I've got many calls कि सर गायनी वाला आपको बोला है D-dimer 1500 है. Third trimester 1700 is the upper limit. Second, it is around 1000. In first trimester, it is almost 750. I mean to say, don't chase one marker.
One last question, Dr. Dhiren. Your take on vaccination during pregnancy?
Now it is allowed. It's quite safe. Means they have issued the guidelines. But probably I think that okay, we take all this vaccination what is available, but I need one more vaccination, one more vaccine to be available in India, like mRNA based, and I we need to analyze the whole data, the present vaccination, how much breakthrough infection happened, how much severe COVID we were able to save. We need lot of analysis in the present pandemic regarding this vaccination. One point I normally don't convey on the social media, but this is a all doctors forum. I have found that patient getting vaccine within 5 days, 6 days, they are developing COVID infection. What is happening? There is too much social overcrowding at the vaccination camps.
Mm.
That is letting this COVID infection and spread. And this sends a negative signal to the community. That's why I don't say these things, but I'm keeping close watch on my patient. Most of the patients develop COVID infection during vaccination.
After COVID vaccination, when can we take our regular flu shot?
Sir, around 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks after vaccination.
Hey, sir,
One,
nobody knows the science, but it is this difference should be there. Why I'm saying, there was one doctor who got rabies vaccination, and within 1 week they got this COVID vaccination, and she'll end up in ADM, very severe ADM.
oh,
So we should not mix up any vaccination with this one, because nobody knows the science. It is some sort of normally vaccines take 5 to 10 years to evolve, and this vaccine has been evolved within 5 to 10 months. So probably companies are also learning from our side effects. So let not mix up too many vaccines.
Okay.
so there is one pediatrician, Dr. Urjita, has asked, when do we suspect MISC after COVID? What is the minimum duration? But as I understand, I think you are seeing MISC in acute COVID also, right?
Yeah, 10% of MIAC do have RT-PCR positive last year also. So during COVID also you can have MIAC, and after 4 to 6 weeks. After 4 to 6 weeks, those patients who are actually asymptomatic COVID, they develop MIAC. Usually the symptomatic COVID, I haven't seen that. COVID happened after 4 weeks, now again patient end up in. This I haven't seen in the last season. Let's see, it's a learning phase in the North India.
So I think we end the session here. Once again, thank you, Dr. Dhiren.
I'm really sorry. I'm really
No,
sorry.
no. We all understand how busy you are, and still you made it. Thank you
मैं
so
कभी
much.
लेट नहीं होता, कभी लेट नहीं होता.
I know. I have seen you on so many national and international webinars. I have
मैं
seen you.
मैं
So
5 मिनट पहले बैठ जाता हूँ. कभी मेरे ख्याल से मैं फर्स्ट टाइम लेट हुआ हूँ लाइफ में.
सर, मुझे आपको बड़ौदा के ऑडियंस से इंट्रोड्यूस करना था, इसलिए मैंने ये सैटरडे क्लब में, और आपने देखा होगा सैटरडे क्लब इज वेरी यूनिक, नो? It has been running since 50 years, more than 50 years, and you can see Dr. Satish Shah and Dr. Daksha Shah. Dr. Daksha Shah is a pediatrician, very senior pediatrician of Baroda, and Satish Bhai is a urologist. Thanks to them that this club has been running, and during COVID, we have started this online meeting. So thank you so much for coming as a guest speaker here. And we look forward to one more talk in future. As the disease evolves, we'll have you back again with us. Thank you so much. Thank you all, friends. Thank you for remaining with us for more than 1.5 hours. So we meet next Saturday again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye.